attack, we're going to get started with the basic swing anchor test drill here. Just making sure you do your front anchor version. And the main idea here is you're just trying to make good arm swings working up the plane, up the inclined plane, back and down, so you have a feel that you're actually coming from the inside. You also want to make sure that you're just trying to get a good feel for the club head and trapping the ball so you get good compression. The next thing we want to do is take our normal stance and get a little hip bump forward, then preset our hips so that we can actually feel that we're opening that slot in the backswing, so we feel like we actually can swing up and down a more inclined plane. It'll feel like your hips are opening in the backswing, your shoulders are opening in the backswing, and that makes room for you to swing your arms up in the backswing. If you maintain that openness with your hips and your shoulders as you start down, you'll actually feel like you have room also to slot the club down from the inside. So that was one of the main drills of the preset hip drill, was allowing you to get that feel of how you're actually swinging up and down the slot from the inside. The other thing we want to feel is, we want to get that preset feeling in the hip so that it almost feels like it's counter swiveling towards the target. And when that preset has counter swivel, it actually helps hold your hips forward, so they're not going to actually return to the position they started in the golf swing. They're actually going to stay more forward in the transition than where they were at address. We also want to feel like we're trying to get some pressure on our back foot as we're presetting. So again, we got the hip bump, preset those hips, but you want to make sure you got pressure on your back foot at the top of the backswing. I think at times you actually get too much pressure on your front foot at the top of the backswing, and then you want to rotate or spin too early, and that's what gets you outside your slot, as you're coming down. So again, if we can get that feel of presetting the hips, a little hip bump, preset the turn with counter swivel, get some pressure to that back foot as you start your backswing, you're going to find that you're going to have a lot more room to swing from the inside as you come down. And the one thing that helps getting that pressure on that right foot as you go back is that you're actually going to get a pressure shift to your front foot during the transition, and that also is going to help keep your hips forward instead of getting them spinning and get your shoulders spinning from the top of the backswing. Okay, so here we are. We got a good hip bump forward, counter swivel going back, pressure's on the back foot. Now in the transition, we're going to get a pressure shift forward. Look how my hips stayed forward. They didn't spin. They actually stayed forward in the swing as I'm making that transition. I also want to feel like during that transition that I'm staying connected to the ground, so at the bottom half of delivery I can actually push up off the ground, and that's where we really feel the lower body posting up, and then we feel the glutes squeeze, and then we feel the upper body posturing up, as we go through the ball into the extension. And so once again, we want to get that feel, bump hips forward, get a good counter swivel, and you're going to actually feel some pressure on the right foot right at the beginning of the turn, and then the turn feels like it has enough counter swivel that it's almost rotating back around towards the target. In the transition, we get a pressure shift forward again, and then we want to feel like we're really posting up and pushing off the ground, in the bottom half of delivery. Now, a lot of people would ask, what comes first? Is it the pressure into the right foot or the turn? And that's really, it's more of a feel or a perception for the individual. Technically, we do want pressure going into the right foot, and then the right hip will counter swivel, holding you in that front anchor alignment. The next thing we want to do is get the vertical posturing in play. And we want to get a feel like we're doing a good squatting, athletic squatting action, like we can do a jump squat. We're going to notice our thighs and our forearms are going to line up much more parallel to each other when you do that. And also you're going to see the postural angles get a lot sharper, a lot straighter lines and sharper angles instead of having a lot more curved lines in the back and through the shoulders and thighs. So, once we have this posturing, we want to realize that we're trying to make it reflexive. We want to get to a point where it just reflexively helps us get up and out of our posture when it's time to posture up through the ball, to the full extension and into the full finish. If you feel like you have to pull yourself up or make yourself stand up out of posture, then you really don't have it right. It needs to be a true reflexive, posturing, so that it really becomes, a more natural posturing up, as we go through the ball, through the full extension. Now, since you're a side under golfer, the next thing you have to work on is really cornering out to the finish, high right shoulder finish concept that we've worked on before. And so it's really more of a reflexive posturing up through the extension, and then, finishing off the verticals is one of those terms I've used in the past. For you to finish off the verticals, you want to feel like you're really trying to get that right shoulder to come up and around the corner, really finishing off, and it'll actually feel like it's higher than the left when you get to your full follow through. Although finishing the verticals with a high right shoulder may seem like it's an afterthought, it's actually important to have the intent of doing it earlier in the golf swing, so it helps coordinate other aspects of the swing. This latest drill I gave you is one that's supposed to give you the feel of how we're holding that vertical posture, that vertical pressuring in our posture, and learning to actually swing those arms with a little bit more speed and return them back in front of the body instead of having the body spin out or open up too much before impact. And so the feel is that you're actually trying to get those arms to swing down in front of the chest. You're returning them back to their starting position, and they're actually catching up to what the body's doing. So the body can't open too soon as you do this. You're just trying to get the body back to square. And once you have the feel for how to return everything back in front of you, keeping the body back a little bit more square, the next thing you want to do is add in that second half of the posturing up, finishing off the posture all the way up to the finish. And so first things first, though, we need to get that feel of returning that club back in front of us without opening the body through impact. And here we go. Now we're going to get that feel. What do we do next? We got to go ahead and finish it off. So a couple of practice swings, and then there's that sort of make me finish with that high right shoulder, and then here we'll go swing all the way through. And it's just a matter of trying to blend those things together. You get in trouble when your hips and your shoulders spin too much from the top of the backswing. Instead of feeling a pressure shift to your left side, feeling your hips stay forward, creating some angle so your arms can swing down the slot more from the inside. Another thing I think contributes to that early turn pull or swipes is when you actually are failing to get the pressure to your right foot early in the backswing, and you're actually heavier on your front foot, at the top of the backswing. You really need to make sure that pressure gets into that right foot and stays into that right foot, through the top of the backswing into the transition, and then it starts pressure. The pressure shift moves to your front foot. I demonstrated a couple here where I felt that, where I actually felt too much pressure on the front foot at the top of the backswing and making your swing, and I had that sort of early turn pull feel. So you definitely want to make sure you have that feel that you're getting pressure into your back foot as early as you can in the takeaway. By the time your hands are waist high, you better have a lot of pressure into that back foot, and then that's going to feel like you can actually keep your hips more forward, and you're going to feel like you're going to actually keep that pressure in the ground in such a way that the turn is not going to open up so early, and you're going to feel like you can swing more down from the inside. And so that really, to me, the key is understanding how that pressure shift works. Pressure under the right foot early in the backswing, sustaining that pressure, into the transition, feeling the pressure shift as the arms come down, into the forward swing. And that's, again, going to help you get the feeling like you can do a much better job of sliding the swing down from the inside. When you get that pressure to your right foot early while still maintaining your counter swivel and your front anchor alignment, you're going to find that it's going to help get you in a position where your right hip's going to want to more stay where it is at the top of the backswing, and the whole left side is going to be rotating forward. And that's really going to keep your rear end back on the wall during the transition and allow you to slot your arms down before you go ahead and add that glute squeeze and the posture up, at the bottom of the delivery action. And so really, one of the keys is that right hip action. If that right hip spins too early, comes off the wall too early, instead of actually staying back on the wall and actually feeling like it's actually staying in position as the body creates a pressure shift forward and then begins to clear, then you're going to find that you're going to actually spin out too early when you don't do that. And right here you can see how my right hip did not look like it moved back to its starting position. It actually held position as I created a pressure shift forward. Then my hips cleared onto the wall. Then I created that pelvic thrust or that glute squeeze before posturing up all the way through to the finish. So ultimately you're going to find that it's the ability to get the pressure into the right foot early, get those hips counter swiveled, maintaining that front anchor alignment is going to really set you up for a transition where when you make that pressure shift forward, your hips actually start to clear, but stay forward as they're clearing. They don't return back to where they started at address, and they definitely don't spin. If anything, there's a sense it's a little bit of a hip bump forward, or players feel like they're backing into it coming into address. Coming into impact. So, if you get that feeling that you have a good pressure shift, into your right foot as you counter swivel your hips up to the top of the backswing, you're going to feel like you're really in a position where your hips are going to want to stay forward, and you're going to maintain that secondary tilt, into the transition longer, which allows you to slot that swing better, coming down. You're going to see the same process happening with the driver. Again, you still want that pressure to move to your right foot early in the backswing. The right hip's going to counter swivel a little deeper. You're going to feel like it's you're maintaining your front anchor balance, but you also have some secondary tilt as you do that. And in the transition, then that's when you're going to feel more of that pressure shift move forward to the left side. That's going to keep your hips forward, although your right hip will still feel like it's back on the wall as you're doing that. And that's going to allow you to create more room to slot from the inside. Your body doesn't open up so quickly when you do that, and your tendency is to get a little bit more pressure to the left side during the backswing, or too early, I would say, before the transition. It moves sort of over onto your left side, sort of at the top of the backswing, and now you're going to start turning from the top and getting outside the slot too early, and you're going to get those early pulls. In these next three swings, you're going to see a good example of an early pressure shift to the right side where the hips stay forward. It almost looks like there's a little backing into it action, and this is really helping get the slotting action from the inside. Then on this last swing here, you'll notice that there's a lot actually stronger posturing up action through to the finish, and that was achieved with better vertical posture.